Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFiorio with Keys to the Shop, and welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco. They have been making espresso machines in Florence, Italy since 1927, and I'll tell you, I grew up with this company. There was the machine that I used when I first started in coffee, and a lot of people have the same story. It's a classic, specifically the Linea. That was just a beautiful machine, a workhorse. It was dependable, and today they have not only a whole fleet of dependable espresso machines, but also beautiful and technologically innovative, like the KB90 espresso machine, straight-in locking portafilters, scales in the drip tray, the whole 9 yards. So you can have configurations of espresso machines with La Marzocco that are very technologically advanced or pretty simple, but it depends on your style. So go to their website, lamarzocousa.com, check them out there, and also email info@lamarzocousa.com. Look at their espresso machines. This is the company that you want to start with, I think. It's really an amazing brand, and they've been around this long for a reason. They help you succeed. So lamarzocousa.com. Now, we are also sponsored today by our friends at Rattleware. Rattleware provides smallwares that just work, smallwares that you don't have to worry about not working. The things that bug you behind the bar often are the little things that just poke you, in your mind, maybe literally poke you all shift. Rattleware likes being the functional choice for smallwares that allows you to almost forget about the smallwares, just use them to do what you do best, the craft of coffee, the craft of a coffee shop. And so that's why I love the brand. I love the people behind it. And I think you will too. So go to rattleware.com, check out what they have to offer, and put it on the list of places to go to get your smallwares today. Now, today's episode, we are going to be talking about something that I've been wanting to kind of put on a shift break for a while, and that is the idea of breaking the rules. I am fond of this saying that Danny Meyer has towards the last quarter of the book, Setting the Table, where he tells a story about one of their managers refused to sit a party of, turns out to be pretty important people actually, but they had one more person, I think, than they were actually allowed to, technically, quote unquote, allowed to seat. And so they were going to deny this entire group of people a seat in the restaurant. And they were all really amped to be here at this restaurant. And when Danny found out about this, and I forget exactly the whole, how it worked out, but I think they did end up getting seated. But the whole issue afterwards was, let's train our staff with the phrase, the rules are meant to be broken for the benefit of our guests. And that, for me, resonates hugely. Now, I can hear some people right now thinking about how, well, we have rules because we have customers that are trying to game the system all the time. Trust me, I know what you mean. Not every customer is going to be a stand-up citizen. Some people are just going to try to get as much out of you as possible. They're going to drain the cream at the condiment bar to try to make their latte on the cheap, And that whole subculture of, the kind of people that pretty much live off of Groupon, that kind of crowd, that's existing out there. But most of your customers are not that way. And if we make our systems and our rules really about protecting ourselves from the minority of people who want to game the system versus the majority of the people who want to invest in our coffee shops, then what do you think we're going to really look like after many years of investing into one or the other? Well, if you invest mostly in the protective defensive state, then you're going to look really weak, defensive. You're not going to have a very functional way of presenting hospitality. Your mindset is going to be actually more geared to finding ways that you can confirm your bias confirmation. A confirmation bias is going to be set on, how are these people actually going to do something bad to me, and how can I protect myself from it? The rules are meant to be broken for the benefit of our guests. Rules are made so that we have order and can guarantee a consistent output. The limit of people that could be seated at the restaurant at any one time in that case was not something invented for the purpose of trying to defend themselves against people who just wanted to break rules. It was more, well, how can we create boundaries around service offerings that allow us to serve everybody along our menu and throughout the day with the number of people we have and the tools we have and the space we have. This is rules and systems are constraints built around functionally making things successful in their function. And the success is measured by the pleasure of the guest. The guest has pleasure in the coffee, the experience, the interchange, and then they come back and they invest more. So if you serve your rules versus the person, and you are not flexible in the moment, then what ends up happening is that person realizes, oh, I thought that I was the one that they were serving. Turns out I am actually serving their rules. And they have gone to that other side of focus, the defensive and the paranoid side. Okay. And one of the things that came to my mind, why I wanted to put this out there, is many months ago, we were driving, my family and I were driving through, super hungry. We were trying to go through Pennsylvania or something like that. In the middle of Pennsylvania, it was rural and there was not a lot of options. Found a town that had a great restaurant. It seemed like it had decent ratings. And so we stopped and we wanted to order. But the thing is that, there was things that I, because of a dietary restriction, couldn't eat. And we wanted to just add something to the, like a la carte almost. There was nobody else in the restaurant. It was the afternoon and we were there. We were pleasant. We were smiling, all of that stuff. And what ended up happening was we were lectured very heavily and with a stern tone about what we could and could not do. We were given the, fifth, third, whatever degree of, this is our process. And then you do this and then you do that. And you can do these things, but you can't do that thing. And I'm thinking, what's the point of being here to have food? And what would happen if you gave me a side of something that is not available technically on the menu? What would happen? What's the end result there? The end result is I've paid you. By the way, this was a very expensive place. It turned out to be. I was like, I would rather have stopped at Wendy's at the end of this whole thing because I got a little upset. I'm not going to lie, because I'm here with my family, and somebody who is attuned to the idea of like, let's do some hospitality. Let's remember what we're all about. And then to be faced with something that was so antithetical to hospitality. And it was exactly that paranoid, defensive, rule following, no matter what, come hell or high water. Now, fairness, maybe they have had people, like a rash of people that were just like all about trying to manipulate the menu in their favor and pay as little as they can. Okay, so I'll give them that. Maybe that's true. But what a tragic thing that you won't generate as many good experiences because of the fear of what might happen in an interchange with somebody that, in the reality, it's not going to kill you to do something like that, where you say, okay, we will give you that, and then you'll pay for it and we'll get money and you'll enjoy your food and maybe you'll write a good review. That's pretty much what would happen, or no review and you just get compensated for what you did. But the physical act of doing that exception, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to start a new trend of exceptions. If it is something that you have built into the system, it is a reasonable amount of tolerance for flexibility built into a system is part of the system. It's not something that's like what we had a long time ago, a shift break talking about toxic exceptions, where a barista secretly makes their own drink for a customer and the customer just loves that one drink that one barista makes for them. Nobody else knows how to make it because it was secretly made. Like those exceptions to the rules are actually bad. But if the company itself rallies around the flexibility idea, then you kind of have rules, but you have defaults, like fallback positions. You've got plan B. If you see that somebody's not trying to game you, they're just limited in their options. Maybe it's dietary, or it's something related to timing, or whatever it is. You can make that exception and be empowered by that built-in flexibility that focuses on the person to call the audible in the middle of that service, in the middle of that interchange, and be like, you know what? We're going to default towards generosity, and we're going to do what people kind of don't expect anymore. We're going to be nice, and we're going to be giving, and we're not going to live only by the letter of the law, but by the spirit of the law, more or less. And so I just wanted to talk about that today a little bit and put a bug in your ear regarding that. What's the flexible fallback position for the rules that you have? Your rules probably make a lot of sense, and you have them for a good reason. But maybe there's a mindset that was you were thinking with during the making of those rules that created something a little bit more too harsh, too strict. And maybe there is some plan B. Maybe there's some flexibility, reasonable tolerances to some of those rules. Not saying you should have low standards, but the means by which you deliver high standards, I think, should have some flexibility, and that allows us to welcome and serve more people great things. So that's all I have to share today. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you here next week for another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.